For more than 12 years, one of Hollywood's biggest stars has been separated from his youngest daughter by a silence so profound, it's become one of the entertainment industry's saddest mysteries. Tom Cruise, the man who's jumped from planes and scaled skyscrapers for our entertainment, couldn't bridge the gap between himself and Suri. But in October 2025, something shifted. Paparazzi cameras caught a moment on a New York doorstep that told a story words never could. At 19 years old, Suri Noël, the name she chose to replace Cruise, was photographed in what appeared to be an emotional breaking point. Her mother, Katie Holmes, arrived moments later to comfort her. The images went viral within hours, and suddenly everyone was asking the same question: what finally broke this young woman's silence? The answer reveals a story of love, loss, and the price one family paid for fame and faith. In April 2005, Tom Cruise was 42 years old, and arguably the biggest movie star on the planet. Katie Holmes was 26, riding high from her success on Dawson's Creek, with that girl-next-door charm that made America fall in love with her. When they met at a dinner in Los Angeles, something clicked immediately. Tom reportedly told his team within days, "I'm going to marry her." What nobody knew then was that Katie had told 17 magazine years earlier that her dream was to marry Tom Cruise. It seemed like innocent celebrity worship at the time. Nobody imagined it would actually happen. By May 2005, they were photographed in Rome, holding hands and looking completely smitten. The press ate it up. Here was Hollywood's most eligible bachelor, divorced twice, finally looking like he'd found the one. And then came that Oprah appearance. On May 23, 2005, Tom jumped on Oprah Winfrey's couch, pumping his fists and declaring his love for Katie. The audience went wild. America didn't know whether to find it romantic or deeply strange. Looking back now, some say it was the first red flag. But at the time, it just seemed like a man overwhelmed by happiness. Katie got pregnant quickly. On April 18, 2006, Suri was born in Los Angeles. Tom called it the happiest day of his life in interviews. He couldn't stop talking about his daughter, describing her as a miracle. But even the birth itself followed strict Scientology protocols. The delivery room observed what's called a silent birth, where nobody speaks during labor. Tom had reportedly purchased his own ultrasound machine to monitor Katie's pregnancy himself. To outsiders, these details seemed controlling, even invasive. To Tom, according to those close to him, it was devotion, his way of protecting his family according to the beliefs he held sacred. The wedding came 7 months later, on November 18, 2006. They rented the 15th-century Odescalchi Castle in Bracciano, Italy. The ceremony cost over $3 million. Katie wore custom Giorgio Armani. The guest list included Will Smith, Jada Pinkett Smith, Jennifer Lopez, Mark Anthony, and Victoria and David Beckham. It looked like a fairy tale. But Katie's parents, Martin and Kathleen Holmes, lifelong Catholics from Toledo, Ohio, reportedly felt uneasy throughout the celebration. Their daughter was entering a world they didn't understand, governed by rules they'd never agreed to. By 2007, Tom and Katie appeared untouchable. They graced magazine covers as Hollywood's golden couple. Tom continued his reign as an action star. Katie landed fashion campaigns and acting roles. Little Suri, with her adorable outfits and curly hair, became a paparazzi favorite. But people who spent time with them started noticing things that didn't quite add up. Katie was rarely alone. When she went shopping or met friends for lunch, there were always other people present, individuals connected to Tom's inner circle or Scientology. Journalist Maureen Orth observed them at dinner one evening, and later wrote about Katie's comment when fans approached their table. "Oh, we don't go outside very much," Katie said with a tight smile. To someone unfamiliar with Scientology's structure, it might have sounded like a joke about celebrity life. To those who understood the organization's control mechanisms, it was revealing. Friends who'd known Katie for years said she'd changed. Her speech patterns became repetitive, especially when discussing Tom. "He's amazing. He's wonderful. He's incredible." The compliments sounded rehearsed, like lines from a script she'd been given. Her parents visited less frequently. Martin and Kathleen Holmes were deeply uncomfortable with Scientology's influence over their daughter's life. They'd raised Katie in the Catholic Church, and now they watched as she drifted further into a belief system they considered dangerous. Tom's devotion to Scientology had only intensified over the years. He'd become one of the organization's most visible and powerful ambassadors, second only to David Miscavige, the church's leader. Tom's two older children from his marriage to Nicole Kidman, Isabella and Connor, were already deeply embedded in Scientology. For Tom, it seemed natural that Suri would eventually follow the same path. But Katie wasn't ready to accept that future for her daughter. By 2010, Whispers started circulating in Hollywood. Katie had stopped attending certain Scientology events. She was spending more time in New York without Tom. She'd reconnected with old friends from her pre-Tom life, people who had nothing to do with the church. Those close to the situation said Katie felt trapped, that she'd begun researching divorce lawyers and custody options in secret. She knew leaving wouldn't be simple. Tom was one of the most powerful men in Hollywood, backed by an organization known for its aggressive defense of its members. If she wanted out, she'd need to plan it perfectly. June 29, 2012. The news broke early in the morning. Katie Holmes had filed for divorce from Tom Cruise. The timing was brutal, just days before Tom's 50th birthday. But this wasn't an impulsive decision. Katie had been preparing for months with the kind of precision you'd expect from a spy operation. She'd switched cell phones, concerned that her communications were being monitored. She'd hired new security personnel after growing suspicious that her existing team reported back to Scientology handlers. She'd quietly replaced household staff. Her father, Martin Holmes, a respected attorney in Ohio, had helped her years earlier with the prenuptial agreement. Now he became her strategic advisor, helping her navigate the legal complexities of leaving one of Hollywood's most powerful men. New York's custody laws favored the parent seeking primary physical custody, especially when protecting a child's religious upbringing was involved. She requested sole legal custody of 6-year-old Suri, along with complete authority over her education, medical care, and religious instruction. Court documents made it clear Katie wanted to ensure Suri would not be raised in Scientology. Tom was filming Oblivion in Iceland when the papers were served. By multiple accounts, he had no idea it was coming. He learned about his divorce the same way millions of others did, through news headlines. For a man who controlled every detail of his public image and professional life, the loss of control must have been devastating. He later told a reporter, "Life can do that to you. It hit me hard. The legal battle could have dragged on for years. Instead, it ended in 11 days. On July 9, 2012, they reached a settlement. Tom agreed to pay $400,000 annually in child support until Suri turned 18, plus additional expenses for health insurance, dental care, education, and college tuition. The settlement also granted Katie's central demand, primary physical custody and decision-making authority over Suri's upbringing. But money and custody arrangements weren't what Katie had really wanted. What she wanted was distance. Physical distance from Los Angeles, legal distance from Scientology's influence, spiritual distance from a system she'd come to fear. The day after the settlement was finalized, Katie and Suri left Los Angeles. When Paparazzi found them days later, they were walking hand in hand through Chelsea and Manhattan. Katie looked exhausted but genuinely at peace for the first time in years. In 2013, Tom was deposed as part of a $50 million defamation lawsuit he'd filed against Bauer Media. Under oath, attorneys asked him directly whether Katie had left him to protect Suri from Scientology. Tom's answer was careful but revealing. He called the question offensive but then admitted it was true, saying it was one of the assertions. It was the closest he ever came to publicly acknowledging why his marriage had ended. That same year, reports surfaced that Tom had seen Suri exactly once since the divorce, during a brief private meeting. After that, nothing. No photographs together, no confirmed visits, no public acknowledgement. The man who'd jumped on Oprah's couch declaring his love, who'd called Suri a miracle, simply disappeared from her daily life. Tom threw himself into work with an intensity that seemed almost desperate. He filmed Mission Impossible sequels back to back. He trained for stunts that terrified insurance companies, hanging from planes at 15,000 feet, breaking his ankle during a building-to-building jump in London. He traveled constantly, doing press tours that took him to dozens of countries. Fans cheered his dedication to practical effects and his refusal to use stunt doubles, but those close to him wondered if the relentless schedule was less about art and more about avoidance. Meanwhile, in Manhattan, Katie focused on giving Suri something resembling a normal childhood. She enrolled her daughter at Avenues, the World School, an exclusive private institution on West 26th Street. She took Suri to Central Park, to dance classes at Broadway Dance Center, to cafes in the West Village. Paparazzi still followed them, but Katie had learned to navigate public life on her own terms. She smiled when she wanted to. She ignored cameras when she didn't. Friends who met Suri during these years described her as remarkably well-adjusted. She was bright, funny, kind to others, and surprisingly grounded considering she'd been born into one of Hollywood's most famous families. She had friends whose parents weren't celebrities. She rode the subway. She did homework at coffee shops. Katie had successfully created distance between her daughter and the machinery of fame. But there was one constant absence. For 12 years, Tom and Suri were never photographed together. He continued to fulfill his financial obligations, paying for her schooling and medical expenses as the settlement required. But he wasn't present. He wasn't there for birthdays or holidays or school plays. Whatever relationship they'd had effectively ended the day Katie filed for divorce. By 2021, Suri was a teenager at LaGuardia High School of Music, Art and Performing Arts, the prestigious Manhattan school that inspired the movie Fame. She studied acting and musical theater. She sang in school productions. She directed short films with her classmates. But during her senior year, something changed that caught the attention of everyone who'd followed her story. In the spring of 2024, LaGuardia staged a production of The Addams Family. When the program was printed, Suri's name appeared not as Suri Cruz but as Suri Noël. Noël is Katie's middle name, Katie Noël Holmes. At first, people thought it might just be a stage name, something temporary for a high school musical. But then graduation arrived in June 2024, and the official ceremony program listed her the same way, Suri Noël. The contrast was stark and painful. While his daughter graduated from one of New York's most competitive high schools, achieving something worth celebrating, he was across the Atlantic dancing to shake it off. Katie, meanwhile, sat among the other parents in the auditorium, clapping and wiping away tears as Suri walked across the stage to receive her diploma. That summer, Suri enrolled at Carnegie Mellon University in Pittsburgh, one of the country's top schools for arts and technology. She chose to major in fashion design. Katie helped her move into her dorm in August, carrying boxes herself, setting up the small room that would be her daughter's home for the next 4 years. There were no bodyguards, no assistants, no paparazzi orchestrated photo opportunities, just a mother helping her daughter start the next chapter of her life. In early 2025, Katie directed a new film called Rare Objects, reuniting with her former Dawson's Creek co-star Joshua Jackson. During filming in New York, Suri visited the set. Photographs from that day show a poised 19-year-old wearing khaki pants, a white tank top and red sneakers. She carried herself with quiet confidence, talking easily with the crew, observing her mother at work. She looked comfortable in her own skin, unburdened by the expectations that came with being Tom Cruise's daughter. Because she wasn't, not anymore. She was Suri Noël, and she'd chosen that identity deliberately. October 2025. A paparazzi photographer captured images that would reignite the conversation about Tom and Suri. The photos showed Suri sitting on a doorstep in Manhattan's West Village, her head in her hands, clearly upset about something. She looked exhausted, emotionally drained in a way that went beyond typical college stress. Minutes later, Katie arrived in an Uber, sat down beside her daughter and wrapped an arm around her shoulders. They talked quietly for several minutes before walking to a nearby bakery. To most people scrolling past the images online, it looked like an ordinary moment between a mother and daughter. Bad day at school, relationship troubles, the normal challenges of being 19. But for those who'd followed the Cruz home story for years, the photographs felt symbolic of something much deeper. Here was a young woman who'd grown up without her father, who'd changed her name to distance herself from his legacy, having what appeared to be an emotional breaking point while her mother rushed to comfort her. Suri is now a sophomore at Carnegie Mellon. She's studying fashion design and reportedly writing music in her spare time. She has a small circle of close friends. She posts occasionally on social media, though her accounts are private. She goes to parties and concerts and does normal college things. But her relationship with her father remains non-existent. They haven't been photographed together in over 12 years. According to sources close to the family, they haven't spoken either. Tom, meanwhile, continues to operate at the highest levels of Hollywood. He's preparing to film sequences for an upcoming project with NASA and SpaceX, which would make him one of the first actors to shoot scenes in actual outer space. He's 63 years old and still performing stunts that would terrify actors half his age. He attends premieres and film festivals. He does press tours where he's charming and energetic and completely professional, but he never discusses Suri. In hundreds of interviews over the past decade, her name almost never comes up. Those who know Katie say she's tried to avoid bitterness. She speaks carefully when Suri's childhood is mentioned, focusing on gratitude for her daughter's strength and independence. She's an incredible person, Katie told a reporter in 2023. But even in her measured words, there's an acknowledgement of loss. A childhood spent looking over her shoulder. A daughter who had to choose between her parents' worlds and ultimately chose only one. Hollywood insiders who knew Tom and Katie during their marriage have largely stayed silent, bound by loyalty or legal agreements or simple discretion. But some have spoken carefully about those years, confirming that Katie felt increasingly isolated and that Scientology's influence over the family was a constant source of tension. As for Suri, friends say she's focused on building her own identity, one completely separate from her father's fame. She wants to be known for her own work, her own creativity, not as anyone's daughter. Whether there will ever be reconciliation between Tom and Suri remains unclear. Some wounds, especially those formed during childhood, don't heal simply because time passes. They require acknowledgement, conversation, and effort from both sides. After 12 years of silence, can those bridges ever be rebuilt, or has too much time already been lost?